Well, new reaction coming in on the $250 million lawsuit now against the Washington Post over its coverage of that viral confrontation. The family of Covington High School's Nick Sandmann says the newspaper targeted and bullied the high school student in order to embarrass the president.
The state of the social media, and given what we have seen, something has to be done. I mean, I think that's what citizens, non-lawyers like myself say. You cannot just have this system where you rush to judgment, destroy somebody, and then pick up the pieces later.
Media Buzz host and Fox News media analyst Howard Kurtz joins us now. Howie, good morning.
Good morning, Sandra.
Take us back to the moment when all of this was unfolding and the way the Washington Post reacted.
Well, the Washington Post made two serious errors at the outset. One was relying on that misleading video that didn't capture much of what happened in that confrontation on the mall. The other was relying on an interview with the other guy in the confrontation, the Native American activist Nathan Phillips, who said several things that turned out not to be true. And in the process, reporting by the Post and others, did unfairly malign Nick Sandmann and the kids from these Catholic high schools. But that doesn't add up to malice, which is what the lawsuit charges, and it doesn't necessarily add up to a $250 million libel judgment.
The Post is, the lawsuit alleges that the Post, and this is the words in the lawsuit, targeted and bullied the 16-year-old Nicholas Sandmann in order to embarrass President Trump, Howie.
Well, of course, the fact that the Sandmann and others were wearing the MAGA caps certainly gave fuel to this. But look, these were three Metro reporters covering a demonstration on deadline. They're not political reporters covering the administration, so I don't think they had any motivation. You can accuse them of sloppiness, sure. Now, I went back and looked at those first couple stories. Where was the other side? Well, there was a statement from the Covington kids' own school and own diocese in Kentucky saying we condemn what they did and that some students may be expelled. They later, of course, apologized for that. A couple of days later, the Post did run a story saying, look, this is a lot more complicated than anyone realized. There was a third group of black activists who were stirring up trouble, and quoting the statement, initial statement to the Cincinnati Enquirer by Nick Sandmann, who we finally heard from. So I'm not defending what the paper did. I think that a social media mob did descend on Nick Sandmann and these other students in a very unfair way because of very flawed reporting. But to make these charges in a lawsuit and say it's all political and the Post hates Trump, and that's why this was done, there was malice, I think that's a much tougher case to make in a courtroom.
And as we were discussing, and you just heard from Bill Bennett earlier, and we talked to Martha McCallum at the top of the hour about this will live on forever for this young man. There are some people who are looking at this lawsuit and saying he should get every penny of it. The president has decided to weigh in, and he put a tweet out there, and he's cheering Nick Sandmann on. He is making the case that he's got a solid case here and he should win. But the president certainly took the opportunity to weigh in on it.
Yeah, given his animosity, or you could say some mutual animosity between him and the Washington Post, I'm not surprised that he'd be rooting for this 16-year-old kid who is a very sympathetic figure in this, who does want to clear his name as much as anything else, whether he ends up getting $1 in damages or not. By the way, the president also tweeting against the New York Times, calling the paper the enemy of the people. First time I think he's done that against a specific news organization over a story, lengthy story about the Russia investigation. Also claiming that journalists publish things and they don't seek verification. But in that Russia story, Maggie Haberman, one of the New York Times reporters, said lengthy emails were sent to the White House and Justice Department asking for comment, but they did not engage.
And the lawsuit goes on to assert that the newspaper, quote, bullied Sandmann in its reporting, quote, because he was the white Catholic student wearing a red Make America Great Again souvenir cap. What we also know is that his legal team, and his lawyer will be joining us on this program tomorrow morning, Howie, they sent preservation letters to 50 groups, whether it was newspapers or celebrities who immediately responded to all of this. This is going to take a lot of time. This is going to take a lot of time to play out. I just wonder, and we asked this question in the days that followed, is there going to be any lessons learned?
Well, I really think there should be some journalistic soul-searching here, not just by the Washington Post, but many of the individual journalists and other news organizations that piled on, that did make these kids a kind of a symbol of racial hatred and intolerance for things that they didn't do. They were actually the victims here. Sandmann was actually trying to cool down the confrontation. So I'm not sure it ultimately gets settled in a courtroom, although I think more lawsuits are coming, and that's going to cost these organizations a lot of money. But I do think it was a real journalistic failure, and one that we perhaps haven't fully explored the lessons of, and I do think that's important, Sandra.
It's a lengthy lawsuit, and the Washington Post intends to fight back, so we'll see. Howard Kurtz, thank you.
Great to see you.
Thank you, Howard.